Well, good morning, folks. If you could see me, you'd see me grinning. I am coming to you from my extra garage door, where I'm now parked inside on a regular basis for the first time in 9 months, 10 months. Here we go. It's a little bit tight. It's a single bay door. We got mirrors open, full-size SUV, a little brush of the rubber mat, no worry. 8 inches both sides. Long tail to get out the door. Out we go. This is the first commute. I had to open both garage doors to get the car, just to get into the driver's door. And now I gotta make sure that they go back down. Okay. A little cold today. But if you remember my last video where I drove this car, I was pretty upset because I was covered in spider webs. Sprinkler sprayed me. I was just sick of parking this thing outside. The more it grew towards the fall, we had stuff coming out of the trees overhead. They're not my trees. And, you know, leaves are just everywhere on this car. Organic matter, bird droppings. I'd had it. And the idea came to me to just go ahead and, I don't know where the idea came from, but I started thinking about, I've got this third garage bay, what if I could fit this thing in there? And the biggest obstacle was all these things that cover the floor space. I mean, the floor space of the bay was covered. So how do you go from a full garage to an empty garage? The answer turned out to be storage. So I left work early on a Friday, maybe 2 weeks ago. And instead of driving home, I think I was tired from a work trip or something. I'd just flown back. I don't know. And I decided to go to the Home Depot in Belton, Missouri, and look at garage storage solutions. And I settled on a rather formidable set of metal shelves. It took me far more to assemble than it took me to drive home from Belton, Missouri and walk through the Home Depot. It took some time. You know, I put on a podcast, cracked open a beer, and got to work. It wasn't, yeah, if I didn't have the extra time from leaving the office, I probably would not have done it. But I did it. I got the shelf set up, and then I started seeing all the different. I had the goal of freeing the third bay the whole time. And so I started working towards that goal, moved all the cars outside, rearranged things, tried to be strategic, threw away a few things, gave away one thing that was big, sold one thing that was big. Just tried to clear floor space at all costs. And ultimately pretty successful, because I got a car. I mean, at first, actually, I think my goal had been to move my smaller car over there. I don't know. I might even need to back up, because when we first moved in, we have a smaller car. I told my wife, before we put anything in the garage, I said, try to park over here in this extra bay. She, you know, maneuvers the driveway. It's not going well. And she backs in, or she finally gets pulled in and says, "This is not a place for me to park." Being candid. I said, "Okay, understood. You're going to crash, you're not comfortable, you don't like it, all that." We proceed to fill it full of junk, and it stayed that way for 4 years. It was the junk overflow, because my goal was to just get our 2 cars into the main bay. And once I succeeded with that, I treated that as the prize. 2 cars in the garage is the prize when you're moving, because the garage is your staging ground for everything going in. And I just don't think we set our sights high enough. So I noticed a couple other neighbors were parking 3 cars in their garages, and I thought, I've got a higher ceiling, I've got advantages to my garage, I don't have any structural pillars, there's no reason I couldn't do this. So as I kept freeing space, I finally said, okay, let's test out the big car. I said, well, if I keep wiggling this and adjusting that, I can do it. And I did. And it's been that way for about 2 weeks, maybe 1 week, probably 1 week and a half. Obviously, there are perks, but there are also disadvantages, because when you fill up a fairly tight spot, you have what are called, you have a different kind of interaction. Instead of risking the car having organic matter and rust and things like that, the new problem is, okay, well, a bicycle could fall over and scratch it. More people are going to be walking around the car in their belt buckles or hand metal or backpacks or whatever it is. Every time somebody goes to grab a tool, they're going to walk around the car. And that's always been my concern about garaging vehicles, is that you can damage them by garaging, because what happens when the shelf falls over and the bag of wrenches falls all over the hood? I mean, is that worse than parking it outside where you can watch the bird poop off every week? I think it's a net benefit, clearly, but it's not without risk. Obviously, the best kind of garages are more of a showroom style, where you don't actually work on the car or on anything else in the room. You just store the car in a sort of naked space, and then move it in and out to be serviced or to do work on the car. But that's my big news. Pretty excited. I'm done. The other thing that's different is I have removed all of my work detritus. Well, not the detritus, but the debris, you might say. At least most of the debris from the car. It's now a civilian auto, carrying only civilian insurance, personal insurance. And that was the next big step, was storing all the equipment inside my garage. I thought I was going to need a second set of shelves. Did not need a second set of shelves. Might still need a second set of shelves, but I'm not getting a second set of shelves just yet. Also, should probably get a ceiling storage. Costco had them on online order only, so I didn't want to wait 2 weeks for it to come in, so I just came up with a solution where I could still store everything. Drink some water. So, if I'm not using this for work, what am I doing? I am driving the car to sort of keep the blood flowing in it. There are two or three objectives. One, I don't want the car to sit for too long without a good long drive. Two, I'm going to be due for an oil change in about 1,500 miles. And I think I want to go ahead and get that done before winter. So I may drive this car for about a couple of weeks or so, sporadically, but maybe with a more regular intention to go ahead and burn up those miles, change the oil again. I used to like to drive this car in the snow. The biggest problem being that my rear washer fluid dispenser that attaches to the wiper broke. So as the snow falls on the back window, I can turn on the wiper, but I cannot run the washer fluid onto the glass. So as that ice builds up, I'm not going to be able, unless I can figure out. I've been trying to find the part, I'm not having luck. I don't really want to replace the entire wiper arm. At first, I took some Gorilla Glue and reattached the hose to the little, it's just a little piece of plastic that sprays out the liquid from the hose. The hose detached from that piece of plastic. So first I Gorilla Glued it and then taped it while the Gorilla Glue cured. That did not last. And now the Gorilla Glue has probably filled the holes in both pieces. So now I've got to get creative. It's very possible that if I could just get a tip for the hose, you know, even for a different car model, I could attach it to the hose. It just needs to have one of those little kind of male nipples that connect to the hose. I could then secure the hose to the wiper arm, pointing the piece appropriately, and we're in business. We're back in business. So something this dumb should not stop me from driving this car in the winter time in the snow. That's my point, and it's a fair point. So that's what we're looking at now. It's a big day for Kansas City sports. We have a Royals game, postseason, and a Chiefs game running at the same time tonight. And it's going to be a long day. Okay, so here we have a Mercedes who's afraid to drive. We are also on a sort of substrate surface right now. I don't know if you can hear the sound, but whenever you drive over a road that is a functioning road, but it is a fully flat surface all the way across, that is the substrate surface for the asphalt. It's been stripped away and it's being maintained or re-poured, usually because you're in a city such as Leawood, Kansas, that has an excess of tax revenue, so they look for projects to do like this. Repave an entire 6-lane, 7-lane street just because driving by the Leawood Town Center Sprint Campus, I think is around here, and it definitely contacts your tires differently. But we're just about to the highway, so this is not a fuel-efficient car, but the question in my mind is, now that I've restored the 3 rows of seats, taken out all the equipment, will it drive a little bit better? Will it take up a full quarter tank of gas to drive to work and back? Maybe not. I had, tanks of water I had to dump out, and all sorts of pieces of equipment, boxes of things. Become a real dump. One of the things I want to do on my lunch breaks today and tomorrow is take this car over to the car wash near my office and vacuum. Maybe I'll go over both days and vacuum. I don't want to do that, but I'm curious if they'd let me come and just vacuum. The car's too old for the wash, and it's not a great wash anyways. If I could just go over and use their vacuum, it's got superior suction, which is important. Seems like we're getting really early sunrise. So what have I learned lately? Say I've learned when traffic is starting to slow down, and you're at a spot where you're like, man, this is always where this happens. This is always where traffic slows down. And if you have a spot like that on your commute, you are at a higher risk of an accident, because now this is a local delivery truck to my left here, one lane over, but let's say you've got a non-local truck coming through town. They don't know about these spots that you know about. Everybody starts to hit the brakes. What happens when that tired truck driver from far away is coming through town, just isn't ready for what's ahead? And they're supposed to follow different protocols, the 12-second rule, blah, blah, blah. But let's just say it wasn't done. And today's going to be the day where they plow into 3 or 4 or 7 cars in the slowdown. What position do you want to be in? You want to be in the position your car was designed for you to be in. So, when you're slowing down, is this a time to dart over and move into the fast lane? Probably not, because the fast lane's slowing down too. What you want to do is shove your pelvis into your car seat. Slide yourself backwards until you are firmly planted in the car seat. That may mean get your posture straight, sit up. The second thing to do is to make sure your head is forward and aligned with the headrest. Do not turn your head to the side. Do not turn around and look behind you to see if somebody's flying up. You're not going to help yourself. Stay facing forward. Use your eyeballs to check your mirrors if you want to, but don't turn your head away from forward. Because an impact to your head when you're not facing forward is going to have a lot more symptomology than an impact to your head facing forward. You may slam into the headrest, but if you do so facing forward, it's designed for that. You're going to be as protected as you can be. The third thing you want to do is don't brace for impact. Don't straighten your elbows. Don't tense up your spine. Relax yourself. Because if you were to encounter unwanted force upon your vehicle and body, the last thing you want to do is be harnessing your muscles to fight that force. Okay? If there's a car, if you're on a sidewalk and you see a car coming towards you, do you want to run faster in the direction of the car? No. I just heard something. I don't know what that was. A squeaky sound. I wonder if it's a mouse. This will be interesting. Anyways, I feel like I was saying something useful. Alright, yeah. Don't brace for impact. Bracing is bad. You want to be kind of like you're on a roller coaster. If you are going to encounter a crash, treat it like a roller coaster. It's going to push you, and you know it. You don't need to fight it. Because if you fight it, you will have a higher symptomology than if you don't. And if you tighten a joint, you're more likely to break that joint and have a lot more body parts impacted. So go with the flow. Try to keep your muscles relaxed. You'll find yourself jostled, but most likely okay. What else do we know? Is that the ambulance over there? I learned something interesting. I said that's an ambulance, but it was actually a fire department. Someone told me that most firemen now are EMTs, emergency medical techs. And I think that's because fires have become less prevalent. We all lived in wood structures and so on. Fires were a big danger to the city. They could burn down entire cities. People had large fire protection forces to stop it from happening. But do we see fires anymore on this scale? Simply put, no. But do we need to have people trained for these events? One thing that's different is we have a lot bigger and more elaborate buildings than we did in early America. So when you do have a fire, you have a more complex set of problems. Because, I don't know if you can see to my left, there's a, I don't know, it's a Courtyard Hotel or something, right? A Courtyard Hotel, obviously it was built to follow fire codes, but that's still a very complicated situation if it's on fire. Because you have people in there who aren't paying attention to escape routes, they don't know how to get out. You're going to have a big problem if that structure catches fire. You're going to need a trained force. Just the other day, the fire department came through my building doing a routine inspection to just sort of have some institutional knowledge of the building because it's a very elaborate commercial space, right? How to access the roof. Where's this located or that located? You know, maybe those folks won't even be on staff that day, but maybe they keep a manual or something. I'm not trying to say firemen aren't working because they're working. But my point is that one of the things that they've done to diversify their skill set is to really be first responders in place of private ambulance companies. The fire department often arrives first. They bring secondary vehicles, and they can administer emergency medicine on site, which is a very helpful thing. Because now we have units available in car crashes that they keep good records. They do not really have a for-profit agenda. So there's a lot of benefits, I think, to fire departments taking on EMT roles. They're also just, professional lifesavers. It's just a very comforting thing to know that they're out there. I've heard some stories about people who have been resuscitated by firemen, because their stations are located and they're designed to cover entire communities rapidly. So having folks training in every single community somewhat nearby is nothing short of a good thing. Not really sure where I was going with that, but it's an interesting thing to think about, because it may be that the fire department is the lifesaver in situations today, because they can respond with the urgency of chemical fire and bring the resources to you sooner, perhaps, than the closest hospital, which may be an extra half a mile away, or something like that. Not to say that traditional EMTs aren't trying to jump on it, but I just think it's good that we've got more folks filling the ranks. What else have I seen lately? I think we've made some mistakes in the defunding the police realm. We've had a lot more crashes these days where police are not responding to the crash due to a lack of resources or a lack of interest. And I'm having to work these crashes without the benefit of a third party's data collection, reporting, proof that it happened, or proof that someone even said it happened at the time. So somebody comes forward and says, well, I had a crash, the police didn't show, give me my money. It's a little more challenging than when you can order a police report and learn more about it. I visited a large city recently, and I do mean large city. I said I did not see a single police officer anywhere. And let me tell you, I considered taking mass transit in this city from the airport, and I'm really glad I didn't, quite frankly, because, the tiebreaker was that it was going to take twice as long, about 50 minutes instead of 20-25 by car. That was what really did it. But I had a direct ride from the airport. I could have gotten on the train and gotten out very close to my hotel for surely, much less money. But if there's not going to be anybody policing this area, this city, I'm not going to take a chance on mass transit. That's just with a suitcase and everything else. That's just crazy. And so I spoke to my local colleague there, and I said, what's the deal? He said, where are all your police officers? This is called the downtown. It's the downtown. It's filled with, not filled, but it was relatively populated with office workers, and it had a grocery store and things. It's obviously a populated area. No police. Private security here and there for the retail establishments, because once an area is deemed high crime, you have a legal duty to install private security, right? Because it becomes known as a high crime area, it's reasonably foreseeable a patron would be a victim of a crime. Well, here's a crash about to happen. Holy mackerel, guys. Let's be nice here. Ford guy doesn't like the Dodge guy, I suppose. He was on that guy's butt. Okay, anyways, the Chevy guy's behind the Ford guy. That's funny. Anyways, so I said, yeah, where are all your police? He says, yeah, no, you're not going to find them. They've been defunded, they're gone. You're not going to get any help from the police. Oh, you're right. So, if a patron has a reasonably foreseeable risk of being a victim of a crime, the establishment is forced to hire private security and pass the cost along to their customers, right? Otherwise, they have to pay the civil consequences of a criminal act. So if you get, mugged and badly beaten in the parking lot of the CVS is normally not liable for criminal acts by others on their property. But they are liable for criminal acts of others on their property if they have notice to believe that there is a high crime area that they're in and they're remaining open in business. You're basically punishing them for existing in a city that doesn't do anything to stop crime. Now it becomes the private business's responsibility to pay for basically the cost of policing in that community. So what happens, the businesses eventually say, forget this, they shut down, it's not worth the theft losses to operate here in high crime areas, it's not worth the lawsuit costs in high crime areas, because even if you have security, they can allege it was insufficient security. I mean, it's just a non-stop vortex, and this is why so many communities become blighted and lose their grocery stores, their pharmacies. It's all because of lawyers, pretty much, and insufficient policing by cities who want to defund the police. This is what happens. And I was out in the evening, not too late. My local colleague wisely wanted to have an early dinner, and it was a nice dinner at a nice club. But, he pretty much said don't go out after dark. Advice I had no qualm following. Because I went to the grocery store to get some snacks, and this is probably about 6 o'clock, maybe a bit later. The streets are filling up with people who are coming in to just sort of loiter, I think. They're just hanging out, standing on the corner watching the girls go by, as Frank would say, or something. It's, I really haven't a clue what they were doing, other than getting out of their cramped quarters, maybe, I don't know. But there were just clusters of people, and they had beverages, smoking, definitely some drugs and tobacco and things of that sort, just treating the streets like a lounge, I guess. But when you don't have police to tell you to scram, I guess you can do that. I don't know that I've ever sat on a public sidewalk, drank a beer, and smoked a cigarette. I've certainly done those two things, just not on a public sidewalk. I don't think. I have to think about that, because I was in a city once where they had open container laws. So I probably did do some sidewalk smoking and drinking back in those days. Now, it wasn't the whole city, it was just a certain district, it was sort of classy. No, it wasn't classy at all, quite honestly. The city was Hong Kong. It's a city and a special administrative region, so I think that there is a city of Hong Kong inside of Hong Kong. Hong Kong, one word, without a space, I think is the city. Hong Kong with a space, I think residents of Hong Kong. Perhaps I was. Perhaps I annoyed the residents of Hong Kong the same way those folks annoyed me in my recent trip. I don't know. But I minded my business. I didn't engage with passersby and so on, and they didn't really engage me, but I didn't want to be engaged because I don't expect anything to come from such an engagement. But yes, once I got back, I was high up in a hotel, far removed from the hubbub below. There was a sporting event just a block from my hotel, a very big professional sports event. So that changed the tenor a little bit. That may have been what brought people out. But again, I don't think it was. These folks did not have on they didn't have on the local team where they were, you just had a sense that they were just chilling. But eventually, I think that just chilling in the street can lead to other things after enough intoxicating substances and somebody looks at you the wrong way or whatever it is. Somebody trips on your foot. I don't know. We can try and do research, but guess what? There aren't any police reports. So if the police aren't coming out, we don't really know what happened in the scuffle, do we? Because there's not going to be any records. And that should make it all the more darn scary, shouldn't it? Well, the car's driving nicely, other than that odd squeaking sound. I think it is a little bit lighter. I think we're burning less fuel than we were with the cargo on board. I'm not running the air conditioner because it's chilly outside. That's got to be a part of it. We're in the 38th minute of the commute, roughly. I'm well slept, and I will need that for the long sporting evening ahead. Otherwise, things are pretty well. Grounded from traveling for another week or two. Well, less than 2 weeks now. It sounds a little more upon me. I really thought that 3 weeks from travel would be a period of boredom, and it's not. Keeping quite busy. I'm not getting fully caught up like I expected. So I've had the 1 week of grounding last week, which was filled with a lot of sports, which postseason baseball is an exciting thing. I think I took off a day last week, either before or after one of the games. I think it was before the game. So that was a short week. This week there's a chance I take a day off as well. And then next week I think I travel. Is that right? I don't know. Maybe I travel next week. I don't know. Either way, it's upon me and it's a longer trip. Nevertheless, next thing we know, it'll be Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, and the year will be past. Real quickly. We are at we're about to hit 270,000 miles, which means we're driving this car roughly 10,000 miles a year. And that's going to go way down because in the year 2023, I drove the car as my primary driver for the entire year versus 2024, where I drove it far less. So I think the 10,000 average is way off. I'm sure I did more than... In fact, it'll be easy to look the records from this channel. Most likely, I drove closer to 15,000 miles. So around January 2023, we hit the 250 mark. And I'm assuming we hit the 270 mark, around January 2025. Even though, truthfully, we could hit it sooner. My guess would be we did about 3,000 to 5,000 in 2024, and the remainder is all in 2023. That would be the logical guess. There is just so much dirt in this car. I really want to get it good and cleaned up, even on the door frames. Just get it all, get it clean, get it parked in a garage, give it some time to get clean and stay clean and go back to being a garage car, an indoor dog, if you will. There are leaves, down at the base of the hood, where the hood meets the dash. There's just leaves that don't blow out, they're just kind of stuck in there. Ugh. I want them gone. I want all the dirt that filters out. I wiped off the roof. I climbed up on the roof and wiped all the grime off of the roof, especially. I'd take it to a car wash, but the luggage rack would block the car wash. So underneath the luggage rack rails was this layer of grime from the trees. It's just so over. The rain hits the tree, pushes all this garbage down onto the roof of the car. I just can't stand it. I can't stand sitting by. I mentioned even to my neighbor about cutting the trees down, but I don't think they're in a position to do that yet. And so this was the next best thing. If you can't cut the trees down, just park it inside. And it was that or get a storage unit, which I don't think a storage unit would fit this car well. It would cost a pretty penny. And it wouldn't really meet my needs, because you've got to go to the storage unit, pick up the car, park another car there and leave it there. It's just a pain. I don't like it. It's not effective yet. It probably will be someday. When I need to rent an office, even if I needed an office, I would want indoor parking most likely. You can't get that at most offices. I would really like a climate-controlled warehouse. That would be a goal of mine, would be to have a climate-controlled warehouse. It can be storage, it can be office, it can be also a base for other ventures that I could do. I think it would increase my ability to be an entrepreneur in various ways. Lots of ways, honestly. I'd really like that. So we'll see what the world has in store. You can plan all you want, but usually other ideas would carry the day. You can have all the ideas you want, but, well, I'd like to say all things are within reach. You just don't know what life's going to throw your way. But that's what keeps it interesting. And on that note, I will say,